We have a lot to get to today, and in the campaign for mayor that was won, the re-election won by Andy Burke, there was one candidate, the city's leading statesman, who proposed a view of Chattanooga which is really very much in the direction of local economy and the free market, and that candidate was Dave Crockett. He is, in a way now, a minister without portfolio working on a project. In his campaign, he had a view that the city would have remarkable growth and expand as a center of trade and industry in a regional sense. And that would be aided by fast rail that would come to the airport and originate at a point north of Atlanta. This plan seems to be dead in every way. It's not a priority with Andy Burke's administration. And yet Dave Crockett says that he is still thinking about it and is making some effort to generate interest, again, as a minister without portfolio, in the direction of high-speed rail. Dave, what is the report you can give my listener about this point that enlivened the debate in the campaign?
Well, first of all, David, thanks for letting me be on. There is nothing more important that we'll work on, nothing more transformative to Chattanooga's economy and to the entire city than that connection done the right way to Atlanta. And when I say done the right way, and we started working in the late 90s, and I hope you put up on your website, David, an article from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in January of 1998 that describes the vision. And it's described by Harry West, who was the executive director of the Atlanta Regional Commission, the 10-county area around Metro Atlanta that makes all transportation decisions for that 10-county area. There are 40 members on it. The mayor of Atlanta is just one vote, but they decide what is done. And Harry and I have been working for several years, and
even now,
we had been working several years.
We had been, okay, at the time.
In 1998, on the idea that Atlanta could use Chattanooga's airport to relieve part of their congestion and need for additional runways and infrastructure. And in 1998, in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution article, Harry gave voice to that and officially put that in play. And we had our airport directors from Atlanta and Chattanooga part of the article, and we sized what it would mean. And our airport director, Hugh Davis, said that we could accommodate 150 flights a day with some terminal modification, and that we could accommodate 5 million passengers a year at the Chattanooga terminal with some modifications. And that would benefit Atlanta. And the Atlanta airport and the Chattanooga airport made those projections. Now, I had people during the political campaign said that is hogwash and those numbers don't work and whatever, and that was just part of politics. But in fact, those numbers didn't come from me. They came from the airport directors of Atlanta and Chattanooga. And when you create an economy that is doing 150 and moving 150 flights a day out of Chattanooga, we now have 30. It completely transforms our economy. The jobs that our kids and our adults have to leave Chattanooga and go find somewhere like Charlotte or Austin or Dallas or Atlanta, those jobs are here. And we are a net importer of bright people rather than a net exporter of bright people. Nothing could help us more. But the key is we have to go back to that. We drifted away from that starting point. We need a champion in Atlanta, which I'm working on. We need a vision that this can only be something that is directed at relieving passengers from the Atlanta airport and moving them to the Chattanooga airport. Anything else, a commuter rail between Atlanta and Chattanooga is mildly interesting, but not strategically important. If you had something that took 88 minutes to get from airport to airport, as one proposal recently said, that means really virtually nothing more than convenience for Chattanooga. It's not strategic. It doesn't change or build anything.
88 minutes being too long. Too long a time.
It doesn't mean anything. Unless it will do something strategic, it's not something I'm going to spend a lot of time on.
Strategic means what? What's the key phrase
strategic for that? Means that it is designed to move our airport passenger load. That's the end result we're looking for, is to have 150 direct flights a day. Direct. We have 30 flights a day now, about 5 direct flights.
Okay, we got that. But what are you talking about? The time that the trip would take? Is that what makes it strategic?
The only way it works, and the decisions that are in front of people in Georgia, and these decisions are not made in Chattanooga or in Nashville. They're being made in Atlanta. At the legislative level, and Atlanta at the ARC level and at the GDOT level. And that is, they were looking at 3 routes to come up to Chattanooga, and only one of those will work. Only one route, which is the most direct from North Atlanta, which would stop in Cartersville and Dalton, and then at Level Field. And only one technology, which is the maglev technology, which has a top speed of 375 miles an hour, but an operating speed close to 3. Only those things are capable of moving people from the Cumberland Mall area to Level Field with those 2 stops in the time that would bring passengers, air passengers, to Chattanooga, would let them make that decision to come to Chattanooga versus going out to their Hartsfield
And what's the time?
Airport.
What time are we talking about? What's the
less than 40 minutes, and it could be close to 30, and that's operationally possible if you have the right route, the most direct route, which stops in Cartersville, Dalton, and then comes to Chattanooga, and the right technology, which is only magnetic levitation, the highest operational speed possible with traditional high-speed rail, which has rails and wheels.
Well, let's get to the point. Let's not
fast enough.
We're bogging down in the details here, Dave. What is your idea about this happening now? What are you doing now? What can be done, if anything, to bring this very expensive, multi-billion-dollar project centralized system to serve Chattanooga? What's happening today?
Well, one, we have to return to where we were, which was we had a champion in Atlanta, in Georgia, with the Atlanta Regional Commission, Harry West. We don't have a champion right now. Is to restore that champion who's looking at this thing not as a transportation project. As a transportation project, when we had our first meeting, I had an IBM facilitator at that meeting. And we had the airport authorities and CARTA and MARTA and TDOT and GDOT, but they were observers. The people were at the table were university presidents, Chamber of Commerce presidents, county commission chairmen, significant mayors like the mayor of Atlanta, mayor of Cartersville, mayor of Dalton, major businesses along the way. And we had 3 statements to start with. One, this was not a transportation project. It was a transformation project. We wanted to transform the economy of the I-75 corridor. We wanted to transform education. We wanted to transform the I-75 corridor. It was not about transportation. 2, we weren't building a railroad. We were building a region. And that was our focus. And that's why business people and university people were at the table, not transportation people. 3rd, we had said, imagine what we could do if North Atlanta was 30 minutes away from Chattanooga along that corridor, which would have put Dalton about 15 minutes outside of Atlanta. What could we do if we were that close? And actually, we would be one place. When you look at real estate agents, they show you a property in Atlanta, it's within 45 minutes. In Chattanooga, typically they try to get it at 30. That's where they want to show you a home 30 minutes away from your work. In Atlanta, 45. Well, if you are 30 minutes away from Atlanta, you're one place. You are literally one place. You can barely get from Signal Mountain to Level Field in the same time you could go from Level Field to North Atlanta. And that day, it was like popcorn popping. Man, nobody ever mentioned rail. Nobody mentioned the technology. They didn't care if it was a magic carpet. The idea, the most important thing was time. You had university presidents talking about joint degrees between UTC and Emory and Georgia Tech. You had people talking about training and moving people for manufacturing from the Atlanta metro downtown to Dalton. And now with Chattanooga's got a lot of manufacturing that Atlanta doesn't to Chattanooga. Volkswagen's down hiring people in the panhandle of Florida and in West Virginia and as far north as Canada. That workforce is available right in our region. And manufacturing jobs, which are few and far between in Atlanta, are available in Dalton and in Chattanooga. That's what they get out of it. What we get out of it is that we get 150 flights a day. Now, once we focus on that alone, this is not about it's not about traffic. It's not about offloading trucks, the volume of trucks on I-75. It won't affect that much initially, either one. This is about economic development, period. And you get that with 150 flights a day at Level Field. North Georgia's economy changes overnight. This matches, by the way, what the President of the United States is saying. How do you restore these areas in Ohio and Wisconsin and other places?
Well, let's be realistic about the prospects of a $1 trillion infrastructure outlay by Congress, pushed by President Trump, whose desires seem likely to be unfulfilled. What are the real prospects of this coming about? Are you simply dreaming? Are you thinking wistfully about what could be? And should you be focusing on more realistic avenues for city growth, or is there a real prospect for this happening? And you say you're doing something about this. What are your efforts in a quick report? What are your efforts to bring this about?
My efforts in this are, one, to make sure the immediate decision in Georgia, in their legislature and with their commission of transportation, is that the route chosen, which is their next decision, is the most direct route with stops in Cartersville, Dalton, and Chattanooga.
Is anybody in city government thinking about this or paying any attention to this pending decision?
Not really. And it would be good to have this being driven by the city, the county, the Chamber of Commerce.
Mayor Coppinger, Mayor Burke.
Mayor Coppinger, Mayor Burke. And I understand their reluctance to get into something that hadn't happened in 12 years. So why should they waste their time and political capital on this? What's important, we have a good support with our senator from North Georgia, who's a senator from...
Is that a federal senator?
That's a state senator that supports the high-speed rail. And he needs to know what decisions are important. Those decisions are, one, pick the most direct route. Two, pick the right technology. If those two things happen, then this strategy will work. If they don't happen, it's not interesting anymore, and it has no impact on Northwest Georgia.
This is David Tulis, and caller, you're on the air live with Dave Crockett and me. What's on your mind?
There's a couple of caveats that I'm looking at. This thing won't be built for 100 years, even if you had the funding today. And I'm going to tell you why it won't be. You have too many environmentalist wackos out there. There's something called the Blue Route in Philadelphia. It took 30 years to build after approval. Can you imagine trying to use eminent domain to take property and then all of a sudden finding there's a snail darter or a gopher turtle on a piece of property and the lawsuits?
Well,
I can't imagine how long it would take. And then the second question is, do we want to be in Atlanta? I mean, I'm here because it's Chattanooga. If I wanted Atlanta, I'd live in that toilet bowl. But who wants to live in that toilet bowl? I'll listen on the air, thanks.
Okay, good. Two issues. One, we've already done the EIS. Two, we already have the
environmental impact statement.
Environmental impact statement. Two, we already have the right-of-way. We're coming right up the interstate, I-75. And this will be an elevated train, and actually will be, you can make a better case for this to be environmentally friendly than just about anything we could do, particularly freeways, which, this is the same cost as adding one lane of traffic going north and one lane going south. That's it costs almost exactly the same thing.
And how many billions is that, Dave Crockett?
That's about 12 billion. And that has absolutely no impact on our economy here in Northwest Georgia or in Chattanooga. None, nada. It's like a fat man buying bigger pants. It's a fat man's diet, buy bigger pants. It doesn't change anything. If you want to change something, you have to do something that is, maybe it's hard for people to get their head around, but the environmental questions and the right-of-way questions are already, those are taken care of. We've done the work to get those done. Next, do we want to be Atlanta? No. What we would like is to have 150 flights, which gives us more air service than any size town in America, any comparable size town in America. That is what that does, and it transforms the economy. It is pretty selective because it brings people and brings businesses that have to have great air travel in order to conduct their business. Like IBM would buy more tickets than all the manufacturing in Chattanooga because we made a living on airplanes.
You're talking about knowledge workers in the digital economy.
Knowledge workers, professional workers. This brings the jobs of the future. The fact that we have a high-speed internet, a gigabit, that advantage will come and go. Everybody will have it at some point in time, or we'll go next to the terabit. Having access to people to get on an airplane and fly directly anywhere in the country, 150 flights a day leaving Chattanooga, brings the best and brightest and those knowledge-based jobs. It doesn't bring people from Atlanta. It's 5 million passengers who leave their cars in Atlanta, come to Chattanooga, take a flight, get back on the train, and go back to Atlanta.
All right, we're talking with Dave Crockett. This is David Tulis, and he's proposing, again, as he has many times, a high-speed rail system. But Dave, the problem that my listener sees is this: you're counting on a highly centralized project of 12 to $15 billion federal money. The federal government is bankrupt. It has $19 trillion in debt and probably obligations passing. I checked this morning at Forbes, $127 trillion. A centralized system. Can we have real growth in Chattanooga if the system that is going to be causing it is centralized, a giant superstructure that's dependent in an area of the economy, subsidized transportation, public transit, that has always lost money?
Well, good question. If we were building an Amtrak, that would be true. This is a privately operated operation. 5 million passengers pay for it. That produces $500 million a year fair. It'll be operated by somebody like Lockheed Martin or an airplane or airline company. And frankly, it has 5 million passengers a year. That is exactly the passengers that are going to travel on the Dallas to Houston private, for-profit train.
This is David Tulis. We're going to talk next about the prospect of Chattanooga in the future. Chattanooga, can it become a hub? Can it become a regional hub? What is the prospect for financial growth, economic growth, population growth? We're talking with Dave Crockett, a former city council member who helped create, was key in helping create the environmental city and ran for mayor recently. We're talking about geopolitics and regionalism and Chattanooga as a hub, an economic hub and powerhouse. David,
in-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.